Hello, testing, testing, testing. Egg. Good evening, Mr. Egg. Long time no see. How we doing today? Tonight I'm gonna be doing just a little bit of a seminar, I suppose. Let's go, Mighty Cow. How we doing? Give it give it a minute or so here. I'm doing great, man. Thank you. Just gonna do a little seminar tonight. A few of the boys have been asking, just what I'm looking at when I'm trading, how the charts work, how to access them, how it all works, what I'm looking at, help with like setting up the platform and whatnot. So just gonna go through a bunch of that. I don't really have a specific itinerary on how to go about it, but I'm just gonna, I guess, just start off with going through the Tradingview platform first and the settings and how it works, and then looking at the different instruments that usually in the Discord we're talking about and trading and how those work and what they are, and then can just go over some other stuff. But let's see, let me hold on. Let me actually add a different window here real quick. All right, because I'm gonna, so that we can see a little bit more of the stuff. Let me fit this to the screen. Move that up there. All right, hold on here. Yeah. All right. So, if anybody has any questions, just ask them either in the chat. I'm also in the voice channel in the Discord. So if anybody wants to speak on voice, you can as well. But I'm gonna go through the first thing, which is this website, Tradingview. And so I think what the best thing I should do is actually just log out. so that you guys can see what TradingView looks like. Carte blanche. So if you're gonna go to tradingview.com, it's the first thing that's gonna come up. TradingView is just, it's pretty much the most reputable and known platform amongst the whole trading community. Really, it's mainly used for just charting, but over the last few years, they've added a lot of integrations that you can actually trade directly through the web browser here on the charts. You don't need to have an account or anything. Using it just as the basic platform, basic free plan, you're able to still put a few indicators on there and pretty much get everything you want and still look at all the different instruments that we like to look at. So, TradingView. Let's see. So just to say, like, you don't have to, if you sign up for TradingView, you can just keep it at free. There's no need to use any of this, but this will show you at least what the difference is between all of them. Now, I used the premium one. Only reason why I used the premium one is because I like to have multiple charts per tab, and I also like to where is it? I like to have second based intervals. I like to go below a 1 minute. So if you're just using a free plan, I'll talk all about that actually. But anyways, let's just go ahead and go to the chart. So if you're going to products, you can go to just super charts here. This will bring up a chart. So this is how it'll look for anybody that just comes onto the platform without adjusting anything, without changing the colors, without changing these candlesticks or whatnot. This is how the chart will come up from the get-go. And so I guess first things first, what are we looking at? Well, when you get a chart that's set up like this, up here in the top left, it'll tell you what the instrument is. So right now we're looking at the S&P 500 index, which the ticker for that. And when I say ticker or symbol, that's like, imagine when people say ticker or symbol, we're talking about, like, let's say if you're looking at like Apple, everybody knows what Apple is. So like Apple, the company, Apple, but it trades under, you know, tickers or symbols. So it's 4-letter symbol, and most of the stocks are either 3-letter or 4 letters. And so, like, for instance, Apple will have the symbol AAPL, but here in TradingView, you don't have to necessarily memorize what the tickers are. You could look at like Meta. You could type in Meta. We could bring up Meta's chart. You could type in Nvidia, right? And then it'll come up with Nvidia's chart. You can type in Microsoft. I spelled that wrong. And it'll come up with their chart and their symbol. So we'll start off just looking at something that everyone's been looking at. Or we could look at Tesla. So Tesla, TSLA. So when you're just looking at this, it'll probably be pretty confusing, but I'll start off with showing you what pretty much everybody's seen before. So up in this top left area, once again, we had the search symbol where we could look for a different stock. We could look for a different crypto. We can look for the futures, which I'll go over in a bit. But anyways, let's imagine we looked up Tesla. And now we're interested. And the reason why we're interested in this is because we want to see, you know, the price of Tesla over time, how it's traded, and maybe how much volumes come in. Some other indicators as well. Might want to see, you know, what its average price has been over a year to see if it's overvalued or undervalued. So if we bring up Tesla here, we have that. The next thing you'll notice is, don't worry about this compare add a symbol, but this is where you could technically put another chart next to it. But the next important thing is this interval right here, 30 minutes. If you click on this, you'll get a bunch of different time frames. If on the free plan, you're not going to be able to use any of these seconds or the ticks, but you should be able to do a 1 minute all the way up to 12 months, which is a year. So for simplicity, let's just imagine we're looking at a daily time frame. So we can also favorite it. So we could go and say, okay, we know every single day we want to check out the 1 day. We can favorite it and then click on 1 day. And so this, and I'll talk about what these candles mean and how they work, but let's first move on to the thing next to the interval, which is where you can determine what type of chart this is going to be. So right now we have candles highlighted, but everyone is probably familiar with the line chart. And so, you know, this is your standard line chart, just like if you were looking on any other website, like a Yahoo Finance, you'll usually see a line chart. And a line chart essentially is just showing you the closing price. So every single time you see these little changes in the line, these are the closing prices for the day, because right now we're on the daily time frame, 1 day. And so you'll see the time frames down here, and as I just, you know, move my crosshair over, if you look at the bottom right here, if I just move it over one tick, you'll see how it goes from January 7th, January 8th, January 9th, or January 10th. So each little move over is a day. And so you'll see, like right here on December 17th, 2024, that's when the high of Tesla was put in, and the closing price for that day on Tesla was here, hold on. Maybe I might have to sign into my account because I might keep getting that. Let me just sign into my account because I might keep getting that that notification here. Alright, so back to how this was looking. Alright, signed in. So as I was saying, if you look over here in the top left again, you'll see a number right here that I'm hovered over. If you hover over any of these points, like for instance, if I hover over where the top point is right here, you'll see that number up there. It'll be 47986. So we know that on that day, Tesla closed at $479.86. That was roughly the high. And so this is your general line chart. Now the line chart is good for an overview, for just looking and seeing how things have transpired over time. But it's not really the best for trading with, because it leaves out a little bit of data or information that we want to be focused on when we're looking at price action. And when I say the word price action, what I mean, price action is just a term for how price moves throughout the day from an open, a high, a low, and a close standpoint. So this is where I'm going to move over and show you guys what the candlestick charts are and why those are usually the most important and the ones that we tend to use on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I signed into my account, so now I'll have a lot more stuff up here, but disregard that. These are all just the time frames that I like to cycle through. But if we look up here still, and we look for the drop down menu with bar styles, you can see that we were on line. Let's go back to now candles. Okay, and so here, and you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and make my background dark because it's probably hard to see. So if you want to adjust your appearance or anything, or any of the settings on a chart, just right click the chart and click settings. Okay, and then this whole thing will come up. And we can go through these actually real quick right now. So you can adjust the color of these candles by changing the body. Well, I probably should explain that first. All right, let me just turn this background like yeah, fine, just so it's easier to see. And then we can, you'll notice that you can kind of see these vertical and horizontal lines. Those just line up with the days and the prices. I like to, in the settings, get rid of those. So these grid lines just say none, but you can leave them there, but I just find it a little bit noisy. All right. So now that we can see this a little bit better, well, let's diagnose what these candles mean. And let me just flip through this. So look, if you just look at the difference between line, candle, line, candle. So you'll see line doesn't give you as much information, but these candles start to give us a little bit more information. And so a candle like this right here usually has the structure of a body. Okay, and because this candle is colored green, what that means is that whatever the price opened up at during this time frame that we're looking at, which is the day, so this candle constitutes one whole day of price action. So when the market opened to when the market closed, where the range of price was for Tesla, how it traded throughout the day. And so as you'll notice, this candle opened up and closed. If it's green, that means it opened up and then closed higher than wherever it opened. So a candle usually has a structure of a body where we've got the open. And bear with me, I haven't really done a seminar type thing here. We're just kind of going as we go. We'll have the open. This will be the that'll be the open price, and then we'll have the body right here. We'll have the close. Okay, and this will make sense as I go a little bit farther. So that body is open and closed price of the day. All right. So as you can see over here, Tesla closed at 272.2 today. Now, while I was starting to look at the body, when you look at a line chart, that's essentially all you're looking at is the open and the close, or the body. Now, when we look at candles, you'll notice that we also have these little lines above or below the candles, these little wicks. These little wicks. So we call them wicks or tails. Technically, tails are anything that are below the candle, and wicks are anything that are above the candle. Now, these wicks tell you where the high and low of the day, like the range that you're looking at, traded at. So for instance, if you look up over here in the top left, you'll see the letters O, H, L, and C. O standing for open, H standing for high, L standing for low, C standing for close. So if I hover over this daily candle, you'll be able to see what the opening price, the high price, the low, and the close were for this day. Now, the top of this wick right here is where the high price is going to be. So you'll notice that when we were trading today, price came up to a high of 274.69, but that's not where it closed at. And so this candle right here, if we add it to our little drawing, it would have a little wick, because from wick to the tail, or if you still want to, or you can call it wick still, shows you the full range of price. All right, and so it's important to know, you know, where the high and where the low were, just as much as it's important to know where it opened and where it closed. And so this top wick will show you where the high were. And so some days you'll notice, like for instance right here on the 27th, you had a really small body but an extremely large wick up there, so, and then a very small wick at the bottom. And so these candles and how they're formed and how they end up being printed, what I mean by printed is that once that time frame, or for instance the daily time frame, has finished trading, then it moves on to the next candle, then that candle has technically been printed. It can give us a lot of information on what buyers and sellers were doing within this time frame. So for instance, on this candle, it opened, it still closed green, it still closed positive, but barely. But during this range, it did move up a ton. It moved up about 20 points, or 7% or so. And so what that tells us is price came all the way up here, but then by the end of the day, it actually came all the way back down here and closed pretty close to its open. So sometimes when you see something like that, you can just think of it logically, like, okay, if price ended up going up higher, but for some reason by the end it came all the way back down to where it opened, one could say that there might have been a lot of selling pressure going on, or that might be maybe a little bit of a bearish signal or whatnot. Now on the contrary, if you go like two candles over here to the left, this one right here on the 25th, you'll notice that this one opened and closed higher, but it had a very long wick to the downside. So during this range, too late to buy. Not necessarily. We can look at Tesla, like a little bit of analysis on here to see if we think it's too late to buy or not. I always want to be careful with today might be a bull trap. Like we might get a little bit of a rise, but we still can come down. Oh, where's my alert box? Drop shot, what's up, man? Thanks for following. Sorry, let me get all my stuff. Where's the damn alert box? But here, hold on one second. Sorry, I'm just trying to see what this thing is. It's a browser. Okay, there it is. Alert box, transform, center to the screen. All right, there we go. Okay, yeah, here. Well, so we'll see and look at look and see if Tesla's might be a good buy, where the targets would be here in a second. But I just want to finish this topic real quick for the boys about the candles. So we were talking about how like this candle has a high wick and then comes all the way down. But we can zoom into that and we can look and see how that looked actually throughout the day. So what that whole wick, so we saw, you know, a very small body and then a big wick to the top. Well, this is how it looked like throughout the day. So essentially it went up beginning of the day and then came down. And then by the end of the day, it prints a candle that looks like that. Okay? And so this is how the candlesticks work. Open, high, low, and close. All right, it's showing us the open, high, low, and close of the day. Just the full price range of the day. And then from there, we can, determine how these candles form, if they're showing more buy or sell pressure, or if they're forming a certain type of pattern. Like for instance, today, this candle, first of all, once again, if I hover over it and you look over there in the top left, you can also see the percentage that it went up. So Tesla went up 22.69% today, or otherwise 50.34 points. Obviously this candle, if you just were to look at it, looks extremely bullish, right? It opened at the very bottom and closed at the very top. This is considered technically an engulfing candle. I mean, it would be if it had covered this candle, but what it did is, like, we had a red day and then all of a sudden it closed way above yesterday's price on very bullish action, and then also on higher volume. Actually, on the highest volume we've had on Tesla since last year. Actually, that's crazy. So that's a pretty bullish sign and a pretty convincing sign for the bulls for now. Now, if we were gonna look and see Tesla from a technical standpoint, is it too late to buy or whatnot? This is where we want to, if we're analyzing charts, and now that we have kind of the idea of how the candlesticks work, you'll notice that I'm going down the time frames. I'm going up to a higher time frame. I always like to start off at the highest time frame possible, because you essentially want to look top down. The highest time frame candle is going to have the most data within it and the most strength. It's going to be the most robust. So whatever levels are printed from these higher time frames are going to be more important than if it was printed on the 1 minute, right? So if we're just looking at Tesla from a technical analysis standpoint, if we zoom out and just look at the yearly charts, so it started trading back in 2010, or at least this is the data that Tradingview has. And then obviously over the last few years, last 15 years, it went up nearly 49,000%. All right, that's all great and stuff, but we didn't get in over here, so we don't care. But we want to notice that, okay, we're over the last few years on a yearly time frame, we're in an uptrend, no doubt about it. Now we can move down to a quarterly chart, or otherwise a 3-month chart, and see the same thing, but a little bit more granular with a little bit more data. So you'll notice we have our, high, we're creating our higher highs, higher lows, and then one would think maybe we get another trending move up. We'll see. There's a lot of things to look at here, though. Actually, you can see the volume has died off over the last few quarters. But I'm going to take this volume off for a second and actually move over to one of my other charts because it looks cleaner for me. But let's see here. Okay. So are we going to get more upside on Tesla? So we really, in Tesla, we've just been trading in a range since 2021. Okay, yeah, well, we can look at Tesla, Nvidia, Amazon, and others. We can look at all of those here in a second. Mitacal or anybody else, do you guys have any questions so far about Tradingview or the charts, the candles, or anything that you can think of that you want me to look at before I start going into other things? Okay, good. Good, yeah, let me know if you feel like I've glossed over anything. What was that term that I said? bullish? Yeah, so, So yeah, so essentially like a candle like this that I'm hovered over right here, that opened up, you know, down here and then closed up here. So essentially just with a really big body like we were talking about. This is a bullish candle. So that in and of itself is a bullish candle, but not only is it bullish from an absolute standpoint, which what I mean by that is that it's bullish just because it opened up really low and closed very high at the end of the time period, but it's also bullish from a relative standpoint. And what I mean by that is what I was saying is that price had been coming down here in Tesla since December 18th, all the way down to a low from this past Monday. It went down 56.4%. So think of this contextually. So now that this candle from an absolute standpoint looks bullish, right? But from a relative standpoint, it's also very bullish because this has been going down for a while. And then we had this pretty red day on Tuesday. Not only did it close down towards the lows right here, but then when it opened the next day and decided to shoot, it completely changed its trajectory. So there's another term for this. We call this a change in the state of delivery. So price had been delivering lower, otherwise it had been looking for lower, searching for lower, and then all of a sudden it made a sharp change in the state of delivery, which this is an early sign, a very early sign that there's strength, that there's buyers coming in, that there might be a change in sentiment in the market. There might be a push to go the other way. Now, we just have to say that this is an early sign. The reason why I say it's an early sign of strength, that we don't just trade directly off that. Hold on, let me ban this guy. And why I don't say it's like a full sign of strength is you have to think of this also in terms of the structure of the market. All right. So when I was looking at this, you know, on a higher time frame just a second ago, I was showing you that, and we can also see this from a line perspective, line chart. It's sometimes a little bit easier actually to see it on a line. You can see that just we made an impulse up. Price came back, it made a low right here, but this low is higher than where it started. So this is a higher low. So this is a bullish trend because when we come up, we made a new high. So this low made a new high above this high. So we got low, high, higher low, higher high. So this is an upwards trend, a bullish trend. So one would think that if price comes down here, if it were to make a low above this low and continue going upwards, well then price is still in a bullish trend. And there's a common adage out there in the market that is, the trend is your friend. So usually you always want to kind of trade with the trend until proven otherwise. So we can see with Tesla from a long-term perspective, a higher time frame perspective. What I mean by that, you can think of higher time frame as really like anything on the weekly to monthly to quarterly charts or above. So if I look at the 1 week chart, on the high time frame, we're making higher highs, higher lows. Yes, in between those times, we have downturns. And so that's what I'm saying is right here, if we look at this whole leg of structure, all right? And what I mean by structure is that the market moves in ebbs and flows and waves. So, and it creates some sort of structure, like I said. A high, like a low, high, higher, low, high, higher, low. It moves in these waves. Now, doesn't mean it always has to go like this. you know. It can also move. It can also move the opposite way, right? It can go like this, which would be a bearish trend, right? So we got bullish trend, and then and bearish trend. And bullish just means up, essentially. Bullish means, you know, good demand, buyer demand, up and up. Bearish usually means seller demand, sellers are in control, down, down, down. All right, so we can have trends up or trends down. Now, all right, so yeah. So essentially, we can have kind of three types of market or three types of structure, all right? And I'll tell you what the next one is here. Let me just all right, so we either have our bullish trend, which in theory, the stock market, you know, there's a saying that usually like stocks only go up. And I mean, that is true, not financial advice. The stocks are always really in this bullish trend over the long term. Now, over the last few, over the last 3 months or 3.5 months, maybe 4 months, we've been in a bearish trend. Not on the high time frame, but just in the kind of the local, more medium time frame. All right, and so this candle over here is trying to shift that structure back into a trend. But when we're not in a bullish trend upwards, or either a bearish trend downwards, we can be in a range, okay? And this can be kind of the confusing part sometimes of trading, is that sometimes we're in a bullish trend, sometimes we're in a range, sometimes we're in a bearish trend. But those are the only three types of structure that we're usually ever in. So you might ask, okay, well, where would there be a range within here? Well, one could say we might be forming a range here in Tesla, because we had our bullish trend up, we had a local bearish trend down, and then right around here we kind of made a range right here before we started another trend. You see? Like, within this price action, and why is that? Okay, because if you look at price when we were moving up in this leg, you'll notice that every time it made a high, it made a low, it made a high, but it never came down to break the previous low, right? It never came down to break the previous low. It just kept making highs. And then we did the same thing on the way down. It goes high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. You see what I'm saying? Like, when we moved up, it never broke the previous lows. When it was moving down, it never broke. So these are trending markets right here, you know? And then all of a sudden we enter a period of, bullish, bearish, and range, essentially. Now it could also be, it can also be like bullish range and then bullish continuation, and we can try to find some examples of that. But then you'll see, then it came into a period where this is kind of a range. And why is that? Well, here was our low. We tried to start a new trend, right? But then price came down and actually broke this low right here. So it broke the trend and then came back up. And so it was just trading in this range. It wasn't in a trending environment yet, until it started to break out of the range, right? So here was that range high. What do you notice? It moves up aggressively above that range high and continues its trend. And then now we're coming on a pullback and we're coming back into this range. On Tesla, that is. Right, so does that make sense there? That there's really kind of three types of market structure. So when I talk about market structure, I'm talking about these bullish trends, these bearish trends, and these ranging environments. Now you'll hear a few other words for range environments. So like for a range, you'll have, you'll hear the term consolidation or like accumulation usually, or you might hear like distribution. These are pretty much all words for some sort of a range environment, but it just means where is it within the trend. So for instance, what could be happening right here on Tesla is, it depends on how long we stay down here, but a lot of times markets don't go just like this, where it goes down and then comes all the way back up again. If it's made a big move down, a lot of times it might actually enter into a ranging environment. So we could start having some sort of range here. Now, if it were to do that and then go back up, then this would be our range, and this would be our range. This would be our bearish trend, and then if it comes back up, that would start our bullish trend. But a range in this context would be considered an accumulation, pretty much, because price is coming down, people are accumulating orders, getting ready to buy, or building up positions to go higher. On the flip side, if we were to go up and then we start creating a range again, and then price goes up right there, this would be a consolidation above the new highs. It would still be a range environment, or it'd be considered a reaccumulation. So people would be reaccumulating to go higher. And then let's say we get up to this top and we go again with the range, and then we go down, and then this range environment would be termed a distribution, because people are distributing, the big players, the institutions are distributing their positions to other players in the market, getting ready to sell it down to another spot to reaccumulate for maybe higher prices. You see? So just based off of that, just looking at Tesla, that is, from a structure standpoint, where do we think price is going? Well, like I said, the trend is your friend. We had bull trend, bear, range, bull, bear. We don't want to fight the trend, essentially, until it's been proven otherwise. So technically, this trend doesn't turn fully bearish to where it could go down really low until it breaks what low? This low, pretty much. Because this is the last major low that made a new high. So until price technically breaks through there, yes, we would have already come down a lot, but we haven't really changed trend on the high time frame. So we'd still be looking for opportunities to long in these areas over short Tesla in these areas. And what I mean by, long is buy, short is sell. So, shorting is just betting on the market going down. So it's just the opposite of course, like buying a stock. So if you're buying a stock because you want it to go up, you can also short it because you want it to go down. And so if it were to go down, then you would make money. If you're short, if it goes up and you're long, you'll make money, right? So here on Tesla, there's a lot of other things that I would want to look at, but it would be hard to explain all of that here in just one session, because we want to look at some volume stuff, some Fibonacci stuff, like a bunch of other things, but we'll just keep it pretty straightforward during this session tonight. Just focusing on, I just wanted to get at least get the basics down with understanding candlesticks and what they mean, what they represent, what type of data they show us, understanding the time frames, understanding when I click right here on D, we're looking at 1 day's price action. If I click here on 4H, I'm looking at 4 hours of price action. If I click here on 15 minutes, then each candle showing me 15 minutes of price action. And so you can imagine that you can build a whole painting. This is pretty much just a canvas. All these candles are being painted on this canvas and giving us a picture of where price has been and where it's anticipated to go. And we try to make money by anticipating where it's going to go, but more importantly, managing our trades when we get into them. And that's a whole nother thing we need to talk about, is risk and trade management a bit farther down the road. Okay, and so let's see. So just here with Tesla for a sec before, you'll notice there is this gap down here. This got filled. It does look insane as hell, but here's the thing. The market is the beautiful thing about the market and price right here. Everything you see right here is the current evidence of all money, emotions, and human behavior as a collective at the present, at the current time, showing you exactly where they think something should be. And so you got price and you have volume, and the market is showing you what it thinks price should be. But we'll look at other stuff. For instance, I'll just give a little sneak preview. If I take this tool called a fixed range volume profile, and if we look over here to the left, we can see all the indicator tabs. So up here at the top, we've got, if you look over, you can change the crosshair to a dot or an arrow. But I usually just keep it on a cross. This looks confusing, but I promise you, there's a few times me talking about it and then just kind of checking and looking at it throughout the day, it'll start to make a lot of sense. But then over here we also have some more drawing tools. Yeah, I mean this is all technically engineering in a way, because you have rates of change, you have second order effects, you have derivatives, you have constants that are horizontal levels. So for instance, if we look at what I was just showing here, like if I show you, I know this, I'm speaking the language of the market. It's hard to explain. I've never really tried to explain all this from the beginning, so bear with me. I have to become a little bit better at teaching this as well. But you know, so we're looking at price, and that's one aspect of the market. But then of course there's volume, right? So when you open up TradingView, it's automatically already going to have the volume indicator. And so those will be all these bars down here at the bottom. And this is just a histogram, right? This is a histogram. And it just shows you how much volume per each of those candles was traded. So very easy to see just from a, you know, a visual standpoint. You can see that back here on COVID, right after COVID, that's the highest amount of volume we had. We haven't had a lot of volume really over here since back in 2023. But like I was saying earlier, if we look at like a daily chart again, you'll see that we had a big spike in volume and we went up in price. So essentially this movement up in price was also corroborated by a move up in volume as well. So you've got price and you have volume, and both of them are in tandem right now. And so far as we want to see a lot of volume come in if price is also moving very bullish, because that just means that the market is in sync with trying to go this way that it's showing on price action. And so this is a bullish sign for Tesla, at least, to come up and at least move up into a little bit higher. Doesn't mean it needs to go all the way back up to new highs. But after today and how much the market reacted, it's very likely we move up, you know, another $50. And then we'll see what happens from there. And then you could retrace, come back in here, range, or come back up. Who knows? But that's volume. And so this is an indicator. And so I'll speak on like indicators here for a second. So volume comes out of the box when you sign up for TradingView or whatever, or you just create an account and you open up a chart. It's always going to have volume up there, and you can hide them by just pressing the little I button. You can also change the settings of your indicators. So, you know, you could change the colors if you wanted, whatnot. So there's that, and then you can also, I believe, read about them. So maybe not this one, but if you want to look at indicators, or if you're interested in finding indicators, and we can talk about indicators as we dive deeper into all this stuff. As you can come up here, you'll see like a upward sloping histogram or bar chart with the line above it. And if you click on there, you'll come up and you'll have a bunch of indicators. And you know, this could get a little overwhelming, but there's a lot of things that we can come in here and put onto the chart. Like for instance, we can look at like stuff like we've been looking at price, we've been looking at volume, but we can add momentum, which momentum would be a second order effect. That's an engineering thing. You know, it'd be some sort of derivative of price action and the rate of change. So we can put, just this one. And, you know, then we have this oscillator. That's an indicator that shows us a little bit more information about price. And I don't want to go too deep into all this yet, because I think then I'll start overwhelming, but just showing what is possible and what else we can start looking at. So we can see that you know, when price made lows down here, it was at a very low momentum. At the lowest it had been roughly since beginning of 2024. So just by that alone, we'd expect, you know, a little bit of upwards momentum, because this is an oscillator. In other words, it oscillates up and down like in a wave. It goes from extreme values, from overbought to oversold. And so that's something, these are indicators that you can add to your chart or whatnot, but we won't mess too much with that right now. Let me open up the floor here for a second before I just kind of keep going off on tangents. Any questions or anything that seems still a little confusing, or something that you might want me to hash over a little bit more? Or is there something that you've seen me talk about or shown in the Discord or anything that you didn't understand that you would want me to go over? I don't want to go too crazy on this first little session that we do, because I'll do multiple of these, because I just want to, you know, we went over quite a decent amount, which was opening up Tradingview, getting into Tradingview, being able to look. Yeah, so let me just do a little bit of a recap from here right now. So we started off from, yeah, no, this is good. This is just knowing this much from here, this first session will get you well lubricated. It'll get you ready. Just even if you're just looking at the charts every day, then things will start to make sense. But we looked at, you know, going to tradingview.com. All you got to do is just, you know, sign up with your Google account or whatever, but you don't have to sign up. You can just use it free. I've used it free for years, until, you know, the last few years, and you'll get everything you need. Everything we're looking at right here is all free. You can use this all free. We talked about, so when the chart comes up, you know, to look for different symbols, you can just type in here. You can type Tesla. If you don't know the ticker or the symbol, like I said, which are usually 3 or 4 letters. So, you know, Tesla, you can type in Tesla. You can type in Apple, which comes up with its ticker, you know, AAPL, and look at how Apple's been trading, you know, and then you can look at like JP Morgan, like a bank, you know, you can look and see how that's been trading by looking at those. We can even look at crypto. So, you know, if you search up here, you can type in Bitcoin. You'll notice if you type in Bitcoin, like when you're looking at crypto, it might be a little confusing because it'll come up with all the different exchanges that it might trade on. But I'll just say this, most of the time when I'm looking at Bitcoin, I'm typing in BTC USDT.P, and what that means is it's just Bitcoin paired against Tether, which is just a dollar. It's just a stable coin. It's a dollar equivalent, and it's their perpetual futures. And the reason why I look at this one is it's on Binance, and this one tends to have the most volume and open interest. In other words, there's the most activity on this one instrument. So when I look at Bitcoin, I like to look at this one. And so you can look up at Bitcoin, but even then you can just type in Bitcoin and just look at the top, you know, and you'll be able to see Bitcoin stuff. You can type in just Ethereum, do the same thing, and look at Ethereum. We'll go over, so a lot of the stuff that we're trading in the chat are called futures. Futures are, which is like a lot of times you'll see us talking about like ES, trading this. And I guess I can give a little bit of a, I'm just trying to think if I've gone through enough before getting too overwhelming. Okay, let me just continue to recap. So we figured out, okay, we can go to TradingView. We can use this platform to chart price action for different stocks, cryptos, futures. We know how we can look up different ones. We looked up Tesla. We discussed line charts and what those mean, and how they show us the closing prices. We discussed candlesticks and what those mean, and how they're painted and printed, and that the candlesticks show us the open, high, low, and close of whatever time frame we're looking at. We discussed how you're able to look at different time frames, so we can choose looking at a one-day candlestick, and we focused on this one a lot on Tesla. You know, we talked about we can also look at a weekly candlestick, and so this will show us all the price action for a week. And every single candlestick will still be showing us the same 4 variables: open, high, low, and close. And we know that the low is always just going to be at the very bottom of the candle. The open is going to be the beginning of the body. It'll be at the bottom if it's a bullish candle, and it'll be at the top if it's a bearish candle. So if it's a red candle, then that means the open was right here, right? And then the close was right here, because it price opened and then closed lower. So that's red, bad, bearish, right? And then vice versa with bullish. If it closes green, or whatever color you use to designate an up candle, then we'll have our open below our close. And then our highs and lows will be wherever the wicks are. So we discussed that. Then we discussed really the 3 type of environments that markets can be in. And this is all under the philosophy of market structure. In other words, the market price creates some sort of structure, some sort of wave, some sort of ebb and flow, some sort of structure that creates a high and a low that's either supportive or resists price. That's the structure, the foundation. And then these foundations, these structures can change based on how price moves through them. We spoke about how what a bullish trend looks like, an upwards trend where we have a low and then a high and then a higher low being created and then a higher high, higher low, higher high. And these are our typical bullish trends like we see on this leg, right? And then we spoke about how on the flip side, contrary to being bullish, we could have a bearish trend in which we have a high, a low, a lower high, a lower low, a lower high, a lower low. And that's something, like this area of price action. Oh, whoops. Where'd it go? This area of price action where we have a high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high. And you can see that every single time it's just making this structure down, and it's never breaking the high and then going. And then we spoke about how we can have kind of a more rangy environment where it's a little bit like this. Now, this is not a perfect range. We'll have better examples of ranges, I'm sure, down the road, but I'm just using Tesla's example where price is in a it's in a transitional phase. Like we had bearish, now the market, it goes up and down. This is where people are getting in and out of orders, repositioning. There might be uncertainty in the market. Investors are not sure what policy might be down the future, so no real decisions have been made, and then all of a sudden we switch back into, you know, like maybe a bullish trend and then back into a bearish trend. And that's kind of what we had right here. A pretty local bullish and then bearish. And so we spoke about those three types of markets, that these are the three that you kind of just want to look out for. If you can understand when market is trending and how that looks, or when the market is trending bearishly and how that looks, or how the market is in a range. And also a range, if you just look at, like, you can look at this tool over here called the parallel channel. It should be where is it? Oh, it's up here, top left up here. If you look at just parallel channel and you just like pull this out, let's change it. Wait. You can use this as an example, as like just understanding what a range would be. Kind of like a parallel channel, you know, price kind of bumping up and down in between some sort of channel, you know. And then we briefly spoke about indicators, and that, you know, we've looked at price, which was this whole structure, but then we also have a volume component. You know, how much volume transacted throughout whatever time frame we're looking at, and does that corroborate the direction that price is trying to go? And we used an example of Tesla today, showing the most amount of volume on this histogram since, I guess, around last July. So, and price was going up, so it's bullish volume. So, I mean, that's a good sign for the bulls, for at least a continued upside. How far? I don't know. We'll see. But probably at least up for another $50. Then we spoke about how you can, you know, add some more indicators, and we can add on different components to understanding the market beyond just price and volume. But we can add, you know, momentum stuff, oscillators. We'll talk about in the, you know, next time probably, like Fibonacci, which is a very important thing to know. Fibonacci, just like the Fibonacci sequence, we can look at Fibonacci numbers to see, you know, how far price is retraced and whatnot, and looking at extensions and targets. And we can look a little bit more into structure as well. But honestly, I think that is a lot to go over in one little session, right? Just right there before getting really crazy. So, any questions from the bullpen? Any more questions out there before I guess sign off on this little session for now? And this will be, I have this on YouTube as well. So I'm streaming on YouTube, and so it'll be on my YouTube as well. I'll put it in I'm gonna put these in a playlist. I'm gonna put these in a playlist, just like educational content, and this will be number 1, I guess. But I'll make sure it's in there right after this. So if you need to go back and look at anything, you can go through there. And I'll try to get it a little bit more structured on what we can go in next. I'll just have to determine, you know, next availability. Maybe we do tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. But if there's any questions between then, obviously just ping me in the Discord, and I'm always happy to go over anything. And then I'll be live in the morning trading as well. So if there's anything, you can see me in action going through the charts. If there's any more questions there. But yeah, just from there, I think this is probably pretty productive. Hopefully, this is a good starter, at least, to get your feet wet out there in the market. And yeah, that's all I got, guys. But yeah, so I'm gonna be streaming in the morning, and then I'll be streaming tomorrow night. Maybe I'll do one of these sessions like a little bit earlier, like 7 or 8, because I want to stream some RuneScape tomorrow as well. So lots of content to do. So we'll see. I'll post up another event in the Discord. So whenever I put up one of those events, you know, if you're interested in it, just make sure you're interested so I can gauge interest. But I mean, to be fair, even if nobody's really interested, I can still do it and then just have it in the YouTube playlist and kind of curate some sort of, you know, educational thing here. But anyways, thanks for joining tonight, guys. I'll be on in the background on RS doing some other stuff, multitasking. But thanks for joining in. Much love. Wonky time. Wonky out.